The red recording icon blinked in the darkness. 00:1742. I hadn't intended to record anything. The voice memo had started hours earlier while I was making a grocery list, and I had forgotten to stop it. My phone lay inside my handbag beneath the dining table, hidden behind a stack of unopened mail. Then I heard my husband's voice. Quiet. Measured. Nothing like the man who kissed our 6-month-old daughter every morning before leaving for work. "Everything is ready," he whispered. Another voice answered. "Once the documents are signed, she'll disappear without anyone asking questions." My breathing stopped. I leaned against the hallway wall, afraid even my heartbeat might betray me. The recording continued. Every word. Every pause. Every lie. And my husband had absolutely no idea. 3 weeks earlier. March 3, 2026. A cold Tuesday morning settled over the fictional town of Ashford, where late winter still clung to the sidewalks in patches of dirty snow. Inside our small 2-story house on Willow Creek Lane, life looked ordinary. Ordinary was dangerous. Because ordinary hides secrets better than chaos ever can. My name is Emma Carter. I was 32 years old, a former pediatric nurse who had taken maternity leave after our daughter Lily was born the previous September. My husband, Daniel, worked as a financial consultant. He was organized, patient, dependable, or so everyone believed. Friends admired our marriage. Neighbors waved whenever Daniel pushed Lily's stroller through the neighborhood park. Even my parents called him the perfect husband. Looking back, perfection was the first warning. Nobody is that perfect. Not for that long. The first strange thing happened on a Wednesday evening. Daniel came home almost 2 hours late. "Traffic," he said. Yet when he hung his coat in the hallway, a folded receipt slipped from the pocket. Not a restaurant. Not a gas station. A document printing service located nearly 40 miles away. Why drive that far just to print papers? I almost asked. Instead, I quietly folded the receipt and slipped it back into his coat before he noticed. That night he slept peacefully. I didn't. The next morning, Lily laughed for the first time. Her tiny hands reached toward the sunlight pouring through the kitchen window. Daniel smiled. He picked her up and kissed her forehead. For a brief moment, I convinced myself I had imagined everything. But doubt has a way of growing in silence. Over the following week, Daniel became increasingly secretive. He changed the password on his laptop. He stepped outside to answer phone calls. He deleted messages the moment they appeared. When I entered the room unexpectedly, he would quickly lock his screen and force an awkward smile. "Work has been stressful," he insisted. I wanted to believe him. Marriage depends on trust. But trust without honesty becomes blindness. One Friday afternoon, while Daniel was showering, his phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy. I only meant to silence the ringing so it wouldn't wake Lily. The notification flashed across the screen. "Meeting confirmed. Bring original documents. Cash will be ready." No name. No company. No explanation. Only those 7 words. My stomach tightened. Cash. Original documents. What kind of meeting required both? Daniel emerged from the bathroom before I could think any further. He smiled as though nothing had happened. That evening, he insisted on taking Lily for a walk alone. He had never done that before. From the bedroom window, I watched him push the stroller down Willow Creek Lane until he disappeared around the corner. Minutes passed. Then 20. Then 40. When he finally returned, he claimed Lily had fallen asleep in the park. But something felt different. The blanket covering her stroller had been folded differently. A small hospital-style identification band lay tucked beneath it. Not Lily's. Someone else's. I picked it up after Daniel carried the stroller inside. The name had been torn away. Only a barcode remained. When I asked him about it, he shrugged. It must have blown in from somewhere. His answer came too quickly. Too easily. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I searched online for the barcode format. It resembled identification tags used in maternity wards. Why would a hospital band be inside my daughter's stroller? I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I drove to the printing shop listed on the receipt. The employee politely explained they couldn't discuss customer orders. As I turned to leave, an elderly woman standing near the counter spoke quietly. Your husband was here last week. I froze. He seemed nervous, she continued. He printed several copies of what looked like legal forms, birth certificates, identity documents. I remember because he kept asking whether the printer's watermark could be removed. My heart pounded. I thanked her and walked outside, barely able to breathe. Forged documents. Birth certificates. For whom? When I arrived home, Daniel was playing with Lily on the living room floor. He looked up and smiled. You look tired. So do you, I replied. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flash across his face. It lasted less than a second. But it was there. That evening, after dinner, Daniel announced he needed to travel for 2 days on business. He packed only a small overnight bag. No laptop. No presentation folders. Just a folder marked personal. As he loaded the car, I quietly photographed the license plate of the unfamiliar black sedan parked across the street. The driver never got out. He simply watched our house. Then, as Daniel pulled away, the sedan followed him. Every instinct told me this was no ordinary business trip. I stood in the driveway, holding Lily against my shoulder, listening to the fatting sound of the engines. I didn't know where Daniel was going. I didn't know who he was meeting. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever secret he was hiding had nothing to do with work. And before long, I was going to uncover a truth far more terrifying than I could possibly imagine. The rain had not stopped since Daniel left. At 6:12 a.m. the next morning, I stood in the kitchen holding my phone, staring at the photograph I had taken of the black sedan that had followed him. I enlarged the image. The license plate was just clear enough to read. My hands trembled as I searched public records online, but nothing appeared. Either the number had been altered, or the vehicle was registered through a company that concealed its ownership. Neither answer made me feel any safer. Lily slept peacefully upstairs. I wished I could borrow even a fraction of her innocence. Instead, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to the police station. Detective Sarah Collins listened patiently as I explained Daniel's strange behavior, the mysterious printing shop, the hospital identification band, and the suspicious messages on his phone. When I finished, she folded her hands. Mrs. Carter, she said gently, none of this proves a crime has been committed, but it does suggest something isn't right. She handed me her business card. If you discover anything else, call me immediately, no matter what time it is. As I left the station, disappointment settled over me. I wanted answers. Instead, I had more questions. That afternoon, Daniel called from his business trip. His voice sounded calm. Too calm. How's Lily? She's fine. And you? I'm managing. There was a long silence. Then he asked, has anyone come by the house? The question caught me off guard. No, I answered carefully. Another pause. Good, he replied before ending the call. Why would he ask that? Who was he expecting? That evening, while putting away laundry, I noticed Daniel had left behind one of his jackets. Inside the lining was a tiny zippered pocket I had never seen before. My fingers found a folded flash drive. No label. No markings. Just black plastic. My laptop hesitated before opening its contents. 3 folders appeared. Financial records. Legal forms. Private. I opened the financial folder first. There were bank statements from an account I had never known existed. Over the previous 6 months, thousands of dollars had been transferred into it from different sources. Some deposits were small. Others exceeded $20,000. None carried recognizable names. Only reference numbers. The legal folder contained scanned identity documents. Most belonged to Daniel. But one file stopped me cold. It was a custody petition. My name appeared on the first page. So did Lily's. The document falsely claimed I had abandoned my family months earlier. Someone had forged my signature. Someone had prepared paperwork to erase me from my own daughter's life. I could barely breathe. Then I opened the final folder. It contained photographs. Pictures of our house. Our street. The daycare we plan to use next year. Even photographs of Lily's pediatric clinic. Someone had been watching us. The oldest image was dated 4 months earlier. Long before Daniel had started acting strangely. A knock at the front door made me jump. Detective Collins stood outside. "I need to speak with you," she said. I invited her in. She placed a folder on the dining table. We identified the company connected to the black sedan. My pulse raced. It doesn't officially exist. What does that mean? It was dissolved 3 years ago after an investigation into document fraud. My mouth went dry. She looked directly into my eyes. "Emma, I think your husband may be working with people who specialize in creating false identities." Before I could respond, my phone vibrated. "Daniel." I ignored the call. Seconds later, another message arrived. "We need to talk. Don't involve the police." Detective Collins read the message. "He knows." "Knows what?" "That you're asking questions." For the first time, fear became real. Not fear of losing my marriage. Fear of losing control. Detective Collins asked if anyone else knew about the flash drive. I shook my head. "Good," she replied. "We're making copies." Within an hour, officers had photographed every file. The originals remained exactly where I had found them. If Daniel checked the hiding place, nothing would appear disturbed. That night I barely slept. At 2:43 a.m., security cameras across the street captured a familiar black sedan slowing near our house. It remained parked for almost 15 minutes. Then it drove away without its headlights. The following morning, Daniel returned home. He hugged Lily. He kissed my forehead. He smiled exactly as he always had. But now, I saw the performance behind the smile. During breakfast, he casually asked, "Did anyone visit while I was gone?" I looked directly into his eyes. "No." He smiled again. For just a moment. Then his gaze drifted toward the hallway closet, where he believed the flash drive was still hidden. That tiny glance told me everything. He was checking whether his secret was safe. He still had no idea the files had already been copied, or that the detective now possessed every document. As Daniel left for work, Detective Collins called. We traced one of the bank transfers. Where did it come from? There was another name on the account. I held my breath. It belongs to someone you know. Who? There was a long silence. Then she answered. Your father. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. My father had died 5 years earlier. So who had been using his identity? Or had everything I believed about his death been another carefully constructed lie? The words echoed through my mind. The account belongs to someone you know, your father. My father had died 5 years earlier. Or at least, that was what I had believed. Detective Sarah Collins met me that afternoon with a team from the Financial Crimes Unit. The account had not been opened by my father after his death. Instead, someone had stolen his identity years earlier and continued using it to move money through shell companies and fraudulent trusts. Daniel wasn't the mastermind. He had become involved through a client who promised easy money in exchange for helping prepare forged financial documents and false identity records. At first, he convinced himself it was harmless paperwork. By the time he realized the organization was using those documents to help parents illegally disappear with children during bitter custody disputes, he was trapped. Every favor became another threat. Every signature became another chain. Every payment made it harder to walk away. The forged custody petition bearing my name had one purpose: to make it appear that I had abandoned Lily so Daniel could flee with her under a false identity. The hidden photographs, the fake birth records, the secret bank transfers. Every piece finally fit together. That evening, detectives obtained search warrants for the properties connected to the criminal network. Daniel arrived home before the officers. He looked exhausted. "I need to tell you something," he whispered. I placed my phone on the kitchen table. "I already know." His face lost all color. What?" "I found the documents." He closed his eyes. "I never wanted Lily to be hurt. But you were willing to let me lose her." Tears filled his eyes. "They told me there was no other way." Before another word could be spoken, the front door opened. "Police," a voice announced. Detective Collins stepped inside with uniformed officers. Daniel didn't run. He didn't argue. He simply lowered his head and quietly placed his hands where the officers could see them. Over the following months, investigators uncovered a sophisticated fraud ring operating across several states. The group specialized in forged identities, fake legal documents, and financial deception designed to help clients disappear from debts, lawsuits, and custody battles. Because Daniel had eventually cooperated and provided passwords, records, and testimony against the leaders, prosecutors distinguished his role from those who had organized the scheme. The leaders received lengthy prison sentences. The fraudulent network was dismantled. The stolen identities, including my father's, were finally restored through the courts. One crisp autumn morning, nearly a year later, I stood outside the courthouse holding Lily's tiny hand. She laughed as pigeons scattered across the square. For the first time in months, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. Detective Collins joined me on the courthouse steps. "You saved more families than you know," she said. I almost ignored the signs. "But you didn't." I smiled through tears. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive in a dramatic moment. Sometimes it begins with a forgotten recording. A single unanswered question. One decision to keep searching when everyone else says you're imagining things. As I lifted Lily into my arms, sunlight broke through the clouds above the courthouse. The fear that had once defined every day no longer controlled my future. The truth had been hidden beneath forged papers, stolen identities, and carefully rehearsed lies. But lies, no matter how carefully constructed, eventually collapse under the weight of the truth. And when they do, the people who refuse to stop asking questions become the ones who finally bring the light. The end.